Okay, good morning. This is how we brew kefir. This is water kefir. There's also milk kefir, or you can call it kefir. Doesn't matter. Anyways, this is a batch that's already brewed. And the first thing I'm going to do is basically gather up what I've brewed for. This is 3 days. You can do it for 12 hours, however long. But it's basically sugar water that's been fermenting, which is basically being, the sugar is eaten by these, the grains, which is the kefir. And those are parakeets in the background in case you can hear them. Anyhow, I reuse everything, including plastic containers. So you want to use a large, preferably plastic strainer. Some say that kefir doesn't like metal. I like the plastic basically because I can scrape it out of the plastic without disintegrating the grains. So you're going to strain it out, and hopefully I won't spill it. This is the first ferment. And by first, I mean you can ferment it some more, or you can ferment it with some fruit juice. I just ferment it some more, and I use these nice bottles that have the reclosable lid because it gives a nice tight fit, because what I'm doing is basically I'm making kefir soda. The second ferment basically creates the buildup of carbon dioxide, which is the breathing of all the yeast and bacteria that are in here. Yummy yeast and bacteria. And I initially was very big on sterilizing things and making everything was super clean, and I got over that. I haven't had any issues. I clean everything well, but not like crazy. I don't boil the bottles or anything. I figure this is yeast and bacteria already. So if there's more yeast and bacteria being introduced, hopefully it's not bad yeast and bacteria. Now I fill up these bottles and I leave some amount open that allows for buildup of carbon dioxide pressure, which will carbonate this. And it will be soda, and it will be rather aggressive soda. I've had bottles actually explode, the bottom busting out. So when you drink it, you let it ferment a few more days in this, and I've gone like 2 or 3 weeks even. But you're going to want to refrigerate it before opening it, because if it's warm, it will make a big mess. I've made a big mess many times. But as you can see, I don't get all fancy. No more funnels, no more. I don't get very technical, because this has been done for thousands of years, literally thousands of years. And obviously they didn't have the sterilization, and they didn't have fancy stuff to work with. So I figure, why do I need fancy stuff to work with? It looks like there's a bit in there, but it's actually not. There's quite a bit of grains. And I'm just straining off the grains. Now, because I've brewed this so many times, I don't need to take it all out. And as you can see, this looks kind of like applesauce. It's the consistency of a rather thick applesauce. Now, the initial brew is going to be exactly the same as what I'm going to be doing. I'm leaving a little bit in here just because I'm lazy and I don't want to strain it all out, because there's a lot in there. Doesn't really matter if a little is left in there. But as you can see, these are the grains. Nothing too fancy. They look kind of like if you took a Knox gelatin and made a Knox block and then put it in the blender and chopped into little pieces. That's kind of how it looks like. Now your initial brew, you're going to fill in the large container. A gallon jug is probably the best to use, only because it's the easiest to get in and out, to do one big brew rather than several small brews, which I used to do this in quart jars. And feeding kefir is very easy, but it's about a cup of water or a cup of sugar to a gallon of water, roughly. So this is my gallon, so I use a cup, which makes it all easy. And this stuff reproduces. Not super fast, but relatively fast. If you start off with a cup, within 6 months of brewing, you'll have 2 cups. Maybe even less than 6 months, depending on how healthy, the temperature, and there's lots of variables. But I've grown well over a gallon of just the grains. And you can either give them away, or you can throw them away, or put them in compost, which I've done. But the grains are, it literally looks like applesauce. So the next thing I do is add water. Now the water, I just take regular tap water and I boil it. I boil it and I let it cool. So that it's nothing special. Again, you can use filtered water. You don't want to use highly filtered water because it does need some amount of the minerals that are in the water. Though I add extra minerals. Now you don't want to initially fill up the jug because you're going to be adding the food. And the food is easy. The food is, I use just, again, reuse containers, just plain old white sugar. Cheap white sugar. Nothing special. You can use organic, you can go nuts. You can do anything you want. But white sugar is cheap and easy and, well, there you go. I'm not particularly fussy about it. And I use a little less than a cup, only because it's a little less than a gallon because of the grains. Simple cup of sugar. Now, because these are living organisms, they need more than just sugar. They don't want to end up like Americans, fat. So I add some molasses, and I use blackstrap molasses or dark molasses only because there's more minerals and other things, just more interesting food, I guess. And I use roughly a tablespoon. Again, don't get fancy, don't get fussy, don't need to measure it. And I use sea salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt. Again, these are minerals. These are extra, basically these are vitamins for the kefir. And again, I use maybe half a teaspoon. Nothing, doesn't need to be very specific. And then mix. And you can mix it with the grains in there. You don't have to dissolve the sugar. And you don't have to get, you don't have to worry about it too much. I never have, well, correction, I have not in years. Initially, I was all like organic sugar and dissolve the sugar and make sure everything's sterilized and just, I was very fussy about it. And now after a few years, I am not fussy about it at all. It's kind of like kids. The first one you're all fussy, and by the 4th kid you're like, yeah, as long as it's fed and sleeps, it's fine. You give it some clothes every so often and change its diaper. Again, nothing terribly difficult. going to fill mostly up. Stir it up some more. Make sure all the grains, are not stuck on the sides. Make sure the sugar is dissolved. But again, it's eating the sugar. Eventually it will dissolve. I've been doing this for a long time and have had just not perfect success, but overall success. Occasionally a batch won't be as lively, I guess. The other thing you want to do is just cover the container with something that is not airtight. Because what this is growing. This is going to be breathing. This is going to be creating bubbles. And you'll see bubbles forming in here. And that's the carbon dioxide. That's the living creatures expelling gases. So you don't want a tight-fitting container at this point, because it will, on occasion, create a lot. I mean, it'll be actively bubbling. Not like super active. Not like you have an aerator in there. But you'll see the bubbles, and they'll be continually flowing up through the grains. But really, that's it. That's all there is to it. It's a fairly simple process. And again, you can brew this 12 hours or 3 days, which is what I do. And rebottle it, or you can drink it right away. The first few batches will probably taste kind of sweet because it hasn't really gotten active and eaten all the sugars. But like I said, with the longer brews, it's eating all the sugar and it tastes slightly sweet, but basically it's kind of funky soda. Once you brew it, you can mix it with other juices or anything, or water it down. I double brew it, which is to build up the carbonation to make it soda, and then I put that in with fruit juice, and I got fruit soda. So very healthy, probiotics, good stuff, easy to make, and have at it. Good luck.